All in all, I have to tell you, I really enjoyed the experience of 249, and that was very tricky. There was a lot of moving parts. I mean, in many, many ways, this was the UFC's first show. Are you ready for that? Company that's been around for 20 years, 19 years. In many ways, this was their first show from a production standpoint. They never filmed it like that before. They've never filmed guys walking in with no fanfare, no energy, no action from the crowd. Post-fight interviews, cheers and boos. Introductions, cheers and boos. Fighters walking out, slapping hands, kissing babies. It's just never been done before. And when you have those kinds of things, they aren't just happening organically. You have to plan for that to happen before you ever start the show to make sure you have cameras in position to take in those fist bumps and those hugs and those babies, if you will. I mean, I'm just saying there was a lot of moving parts, and many times this was a first time, and I loved it. From a fan perspective, I loved it. I will tell you this, hearing those punches and kicks, actually being able to hear the thud, I'm not a prude on that stuff, and I will tell you, I couldn't believe how hard some of those guys were getting hit. If you go look at the Nico Price, Luque fight, I mean, that was one of them, where you were actually hearing the thuds. And I do think that some fighters, and this was only a hindsight issue, so much was speculated ahead of time. How is this going to affect an athlete to have no crowd? And we knew the answer ahead of time, which is it's going to be good for some, it's going to be bad for some, but who's who knows? The fighters themselves couldn't raise their hand and say, this is going to be good for me or this is going to be bad for me. Nobody knows. The whole thing was an experiment. I will tell you, I do feel as though it is very clear at this point in time that Tony Ferguson is somebody who thrives off of a crowd. He thrives off of that energy. I think that would be fair. I don't blame that on his loss. I'm just saying, when you're splitting hairs, when you've got a game that is extremely close, you've got the two best guys in the world in there. I mean, you're playing a game of inches. Every inch that you can get matters. I think that's fair for me to say. And I also would think that the performance that Donald Cerrone had, possibly the performance of the night, I really would put what Donald Cerrone did possibly as the performance of the night, because don't forget the gap that he had to close. Okay, he fought Anthony Pettis before. It was a fast fight. I mean, I want to say 90 seconds. That's a broad stroke. I rewatched that. 90 seconds is a damn good guess, and Cowboy was never in it. Took a kick right off the bat. He was literally never in that fight. So now he's got to go out and fight Pettis again. By the way, he's coming off a loss when he goes into the Pettis fight. By the way, he's got to not only close the gap. Closing the gap means you get to the second round, by example. To go out there and do a really great job and show really great improvement means you get to the third round. Should you make it the distance, wow, you just stumped us all on that one. To then beat the other guy, to not only close the gap, get out of the round, get a second, get out of the third round, make it the distance, and beat the guy? I mean, in many ways, I do feel that Cowboy Cerrone put on the performance of the night. And I get what the judges said. I don't cry foul ball. Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. I mean, that's just the way the game is played. Down the road, maybe Donald will get given a decision that he wasn't supposed to win. It all tends to even itself out. But if you want to know, for me, sure, Justin Gaethje, likely the star performance of the night. There was a lot of surprise on that. But I do think what Cowboy had to overcome and the way he did it, regardless of what those judges were looking at or not, I think that needs to be considered up there for the best performance of the evening.